All right, let's do this, Hugh. Doing breakdowns for everybody. Just wanted to get as much information to each player as possible before the spring starts so they can work on these things and focus on these things during their season. The first thing I noticed when I looked at this film was how front sided your stance is. And you can see that even more with how the shoulders are downward and the eyes are downward, right? And that's not typically a bad thing. We would have to see how that movement impacts how you land, though, right? And like your load. So I would say overall, this is a pretty good stance. Like, that's the one concern I would have. And then the other thing I would mention that I've talked about in the other videos with each player is the importance of being loose in your stance and feeling athletic as opposed to being tense. I think a lot of kids tense up too early as opposed to being athletic and loose and free with their movements and then tensing up later on when they go to swing. And having that understanding of that allows them to be more athletic, and typically you see bat to ball skills increase, and you obviously are going to see bat speed increase because the tension in your body when in your if you do it too early is going to actually slow down everything, right? You're not going to be as quick, you're not going to be as explosive because your body's so tense and it's not allowed to move at the athletic speeds and tempos that it should, right? So really important to consider. All right, then the next thing is the load into the hands. So what I notice here, right, is like you try to load the hips, but since your body is so disconnected from the backside, you can't get like anything there, right? Because that back leg gets super long, and this is what I've been trying to explain to Preston and Sean as well, is when that back leg gets into like triple extension, which is like foot, knee, and back hip, you're not going to be able to hold the tension in the backside because you're supposed to be holding a vertical shin angle there, and you're not going to be able to hold the coil in that hip. So you're just losing bat speed altogether. And the other thing too is because you guys, and in this case you, right, are striding so far forward and heavy, it's creating early triggers in your swing to limit adjustability. So you're losing power, you're losing adjustability. There's just no point to being like overly aggressive on the front side, is what I would say. You have to be strong and firm on the backside, land soft on the front, and that will allow you to keep all of the tension back here stored. So when you go to rotate, everything's going forward. We're not leaking energy as we stride forward, as well as we're allowing our head will be further back, right? So in doing so, our barrel will be further back, so we can see the ball deeper. But here, where you're standing, you're not allowing yourself to see the ball as deep as you possibly can because not only are you striding forward, right, aggressively and too much, you are not allowing yourself to stay in those positions that will allow you to also hit the ball deeper. And what I mean by that is when the hips start to open up and the knees start to open up early, the shoulders start to open up early. And when that's the case, that means that we're cutting into the window that we have within our body and within our like launch positions, well, efficient launch positions, to hit the ball as deep as we can within the zone, because and as well as you're already pot committed to the swing. So as soon as the hips start to trigger and the knee starts to trigger, you're already committed to the swing. Where when you keep that energy back here, like I said, the vertical shin angle, and you keep the coil in the hip, right? You're allowing yourself to see the ball deeper as well as react to it later. So you let the ball travel, you can see the ball for longer. So in doing so, it allows you to have a better read on the pitch. Pretty simple, right? So what I would suggest is that you start your legs closer, right? And then you stride forward into almost the same exact spot that you're starting in. And the reason why I'm saying that, while obviously sitting and holding tension in those positions that I talked about, And the reason why I'm saying that is because you're a different hitter than Sean, who's a different hitter than Preston. So with Preston and Sean, they're shorter, right? So they need to utilize. So Sean needs to utilize twitch, but Sean also needs to put on additional muscle mass in the lower half because he's more grounded, right? He's a 5'7" middle infielder, where Preston is like 5'10", right? And Preston's like in the middle, but where Preston is extremely strong is in his lower half, and his body is structured to have his lower half be his strength. Where when we look at you, right, you are more of a guy who's lanky, who has long limbs, who's taller, right? And you might even be going through another growth spurt because you're a young sophomore. So if that's the case, if you look at guys like Bobby Witt, right? If you look at just tall athletic players in general, they leverage their core speed and their core strength with their height, and that's how they hit the ball. That's how they hit the ball hard. They're not guys who necessarily sit crazily into their backside like a Harper, because they're guys who are, generally speaking, lower in muscle mass in the lower half, and they're trying to make sure that they're not killing the mobility and the speed that their long limbs are giving them, if that makes sense. So, so again, what I would suggest is you start close with your feet closer, so you're more vertical. I would say that you want to land pretty much where you're landing, where you're starting now, or a slight distance in front, no more than there. And from there, while you are moving forward, you want to make sure that you're sitting into this leg and you're getting ER rotation backwards, so meaning counter rotation outwards towards like Donovan and Van, and you want your hip to coil back towards this cage while you stride. And because the stride distance will be shorter and you're going to stay within yourself more, you're going to be able to hold those tensions and those loads, so that way you can hit the ball even harder. And it's also going to allow you to be more adjusted and not be so front loaded on your front side and release that hip early. So now your contact rate goes up, your power goes up. It's just a no-brainer. That's just what it is. Now, when we talk about the positives of the swing, it's more towards the sequencing, right? So when you land, your hips and knees go early. But if we were to look at how the knees and the hips, right, rotate, and then the shoulder follows, we're going knee, hip, shoulders, the sequencing there is really good. So you're doing a lot of good stuff. And then if we look at the point of contact, we can see that you're releasing the back foot there, so we know there's good positive energy forward, right? And then we also can see that you're locking out the front leg. And we can also see that you're rotating around the back hip, because we can see that the head is working more this way, right? There's lean there. So there's a lot of good things on the back end of the swing to point out. But the front end of the swing is making you fastball centric, and it's making you more momentum. It's making you more solely momentum driven in terms of your explosiveness, as opposed to creating that rotational tension to be coupled with the momentum of your stride forward and your athleticism forward, right? So that's something to take note of. The only thing on the back end that looks like it could be maybe a little better is the frame. This frame to this frame looks like just kind of a little around the ball. But even then, it doesn't look too bad, right? I think it's just a hair around it. But overall, I would say it's pretty good. I think that again, I don't think that the swing is bad. I think that the positions you're putting yourself in, due to your stance, right? The height of your stance here, and the width of your stance. Sorry, not the height of your stance. The width of your stance into the forward move, because that's how you like to stride, is just too much. And I also think that because of that, again, you're lungy, and you're not allowed to hold this coil, and you're not allowed to hold this knee direction. So, again, to review really quickly, even though I've said it like 3 times, I'd move this foot back and be more vertical. Just almost stand like completely tall, and then stride into this position. This like either this position or slightly in front. No more than that position there with the foot, right? And that's going to allow you to maintain the ER direction on the back knee and the coil in the back hip, and because of that as well, you're gonna get EV, and because of the fact that we're not so lungy and jumpy forward, we're gonna be able to let the ball travel deeper, and we're gonna be able to adjust the pitches better in game. Now, this stuff may not be as obvious while we're in the cage because you're hitting off fastballs consistently, right? And then when you face live and guys are throwing 2-3 pitches, then it becomes more obvious, especially when I'm teaching them to throw 2-3 curveballs in a row, or I'm teaching them to go to like tunnel or whatever the case may be, right? So like just the fact that you have to adjust to the style of the sequencing that's being taught pitching wise in practice, these things can be exposed. All right, let me know if you like the video. I'm going to send you stuff on Instagram that pertains to this. And, yep, other than that, let me know what you think and what we can do about this stuff. All right, talk to you later.